Hey everyone, welcome back. So you want to really get into like the core of Warren Buffett's latest letter to shareholders,
Yeah.
especially all the parts where he's talking about his legacy and like his philosophy around wealth.
Right.
You sent us this awesome YouTube video that kind of breaks it down, and we are diving in.
Awesome.
You know what really jumped out at me is how open Buffett is being about life and death, at 94.
Mhm.
This letter really feels like we're getting this peek, not just into like his finances, but his family and what really matters to him.
It is really interesting to see that kind of personal reflection, like especially at his age.
Yeah.
It almost makes you wonder, like, what's prompting this kind of looking back on his life from someone who's achieved so much?
For sure. And the timing of it all, too, is kind of interesting because
Well,
this letter comes right after some pretty big news.
Yeah.
He just donated something like, what, $1.1 billion to his family's foundations,
Right.
which is like a pretty significant chunk of his Berkshire Hathaway holdings.
Yeah.
Almost feels like he's like preparing for something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this donation is actually like part of this much bigger commitment that he made way back in 2006
Oh, really?
to gradually like give away his entire fortune.
Wow.
And his late wife, Susie, she played a huge role in like shaping his vision for his philanthropy,
Uh-huh.
even though unfortunately she passed away before like seeing it all come to fruition.
Yeah, and her influence definitely comes through in this letter.
Right.
There's this one line that like really just kind of hit me where he says, "Death always comes. It makes life capricious and cruel. Sometimes he visits babies in cribs. Sometimes he waits a century to come to you."
Yeah.
Heavy stuff, but it lays the groundwork for everything else he talks about,
Yeah, it definitely sets a somber tone, but I think it also highlights a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Like he's saying, time is precious and we need to make the most of it. And
Yeah.
and for Buffett, that means making sure his wealth is used for good, like both while he's alive and after he's gone.
Okay, so how does this massive donation fit into all that? Is he just like handing his kids a blank check and saying like, "Good luck, have fun with this"?
Oh, not at all.
Mm.
Buffett has like a very specific philosophy about inherited wealth.
Okay.
He believes in giving his children like enough to do something, but not enough to do nothing.
Interesting.
It's this delicate balance, and it's something that he and Susie like instilled in their kids from a very young age.
So he trusts his kids, who are all in their 60s and 70s now, to be responsible with this money. And it sounds like they've already been pretty active in philanthropy, like maybe even exceeding his expectations.
He is incredibly proud of their work, and they've really embraced that giving spirit that their mother, championed.
Right.
But it's important to remember that Buffett isn't interested in like creating a dynasty.
Right.
This isn't about him controlling his wealth for generations to come.
Gotcha.
In fact, he actually expresses some concern about future generations and how they might handle like such vast fortunes.
And that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
So what does he actually do to ensure that his values are carried on even after he's gone? Especially if he's worried about how future generations might handle things.
Well, he's put this really unique system in place.
Okay.
It starts with this carefully designed succession plan where 3 successor trustees will eventually take over when his kids aren't able to manage the foundations anymore.
Okay, so how are these trustees chosen? Are they like close friends or family members or something?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The letter doesn't get into the specifics of their selection, but,
Yeah.
Given how much Buffett stresses shared values,
Right.
I think it's safe to say that he's picked people who really align with his vision for the future of his foundations.
Mm-hmm.
It wouldn't be surprising if they were people who have already shown a commitment to like philanthropy and share his concern for, equal opportunity and things like that.
So it's not just about handing over control, it's about finding people who will like carry the torch. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's this other really fascinating detail about this whole succession plan.
Okay.
Any decisions made by the foundation require unanimous agreement,
Oh, wow.
not just from his kids, but eventually from those successor trustees as well.
Wow, unanimous agreement. That seems pretty tough to pull off, especially with so much money involved.
Right.
What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I mean, it might seem counterintuitive,
Mm-hmm.
but there's actually a lot of wisdom behind it. Like, for one thing, it protects his kids from outside pressure or, manipulation.
Oh, okay.
Think about, with that much money floating around, there are going to be people trying to influence their decisions. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if all 3 of them have to agree, it creates this kind of shield against, those external forces.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. So it's like a safety net for his kids, to make sure they aren't swayed by people with, ulterior motives.
Right.
But what about like disagreements among themselves? They don't always see eye to eye on everything, right?
Of course not. And Buffett even acknowledges that, but this unanimity rule, it like forces them to have these open and honest conversations, to really like hash out their differences and come to some sort of consensus. It ensures that every decision is like carefully considered and that it really reflects those shared values that are so important to him.
So it's like he's built in this system that encourages, thoughtful deliberation, and it prevents like rash or impulsive decisions.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's about preserving his legacy.
Right.
By requiring unanimous agreement, he's making sure that the work of those foundations stays true to his vision even after he's gone.
This whole conversation about inheritances and legacy planning, it's not just relevant to billionaires, is it?
Oh, totally.
I feel like Buffett's offering some advice here that applies to like all of us, no matter what our like financial situation is.
You're right. He encourages parents to like have these open and honest conversations with their kids about their will.
Yeah.
While they're still around to like answer questions and explain, their reasoning. He stresses that like open communication can really prevent a lot of misunderstandings and, potential conflict down the line.
Makes total sense. I mean, we've all heard those stories about, families being torn apart by inheritance disputes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's like he's saying don't wait till it's too late to have these like, important conversations.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not even just about the money itself. It's about the values and intentions behind the decisions,
Yeah.
It's about making sure your loved ones understand the why, behind your choices.
Yeah.
So they can like honor your wishes in a meaningful way.
That's a really good point. And it makes me think about like Buffett's own life and how his experiences have shaped how he sees the world.
Right.
He even talks about his like immense privilege as a white man born in, 1930s America and how that's impacted his whole trajectory.
He's really candid about those like historical inequalities that benefited him,
Yeah.
while also acknowledging the progress that began in the 70s, especially for women.
It's like he's trying to reconcile this incredible success he's achieved with the understanding that, like, the playing field wasn't exactly level for everyone.
Right.
He even says he's, like, surprised by the sheer scale of wealth that's possible in America now.
Yeah.
It's something that, like, Ford and Rockefeller probably couldn't even have imagined.
Yeah, he calls it delayed consumption gold.
Huh.
Like this idea that he saved and invested so diligently throughout his life.
Right.
And reaped these huge rewards from compound interest, like way later on. And now he wants to use all that wealth to help like level the playing field for other people.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth, but also about recognizing, those systemic factors that contribute to inequality and then using your resources to address them.
Exactly. He's not just hoarding all this fortune. He's actively trying to like redistribute it in a way that promotes, equal opportunity and creates a more just society.
What's really interesting is that this commitment to social justice isn't just his own thing, It's something that he shares with both his late wife, Susie, and his current wife, Astrid.
Yeah, they all seem to be on the same page when it comes to like the importance of giving back and rejecting excessive lifestyles.
It's clear that they share this like really deep belief in using their privilege for good. And he seems incredibly proud of how his kids have embraced those values, dedicating their time and energy to helping others.
It's a powerful reminder that legacy isn't just about like the money you leave behind.
Right.
It's about the values you embody and the impact you make on the world.
Absolutely. What's really inspiring is that you don't have to be a billionaire to like, embrace that whole philosophy.
Right.
We can all strive to live our lives in a way that reflects our values and contributes to a better future.
Beautifully said. And as Buffett's shown us, it's also about empowering others to do the same. Just like his kids are carrying on his legacy of giving.
Yeah.
We can all inspire those around us to like live with purpose and make a positive contribution to the world.
Wow, this deep dive has been like really eye-opening. I don't know about you, but I'm walking away with a lot to think about.
Me too.
It wasn't just about like the financial details of Buffett's letter. It was about his whole philosophy on life, death, and the responsibility that comes with, wealth and privilege.
It's a lot to consider for all of us, regardless of our financial standing, for sure.
What I found so fascinating is how he weaves those personal reflections into his financial decisions. It's not just about maximizing profits. It's about aligning those profits with, a deeper purpose.
It's like he's saying that true success isn't just measured by your net worth.
Right.
It's about the impact you have on the world and the values that you leave behind.
Yeah.
It's a message that really resonates, far beyond just the financial world.
Yeah.
It's a challenge to all of us to think about our own legacies and how we want to be remembered,
Right.
Not just for what we achieve, but for the values we lived by and the positive change that we helped to create.
He's definitely given us all a lot to think about.
For sure.
One thing that really stood out to me was his emphasis on those open conversations with your kids about your will.
Yeah.
It's something that can be really hard to talk about,
Totally.
But it seems so important to make sure that your wishes are understood and respected.
Absolutely. And it's not even just about the legal documents themselves.
Right.
It's about sharing the why behind your decisions. Making sure your kids get the values and motivations that shaped those choices.
Because at the end of the day, that's what legacy really comes down to, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the money or possessions you pass on, but the principles and beliefs that guided your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by having those open conversations, you can help make sure that those values, continue to live on even after you're gone.
That really ties back to something you mentioned earlier about Buffett's kids.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they might have different viewpoints from him and each other, they all share that same core set of values. That's got to be a big part of why they can all work together,
Yeah, that's such a good point. It really highlights the power of shared values,
Yeah.
Even when people have different opinions, it makes you think what are the values that are most important for you to pass on?
Yeah.
And how do your choices reflect those values?
Yeah.
That's
a good one. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day,
Totally.
But taking the time to really think about those core values and how they shape the things we do.
Yeah.
Is powerful stuff. What about you?
Oh,
What stood out to you from Buffett's letter about, things that you'd want to pass on?
For me, it was his commitment to using his wealth to make a positive impact.
Yeah.
It's this powerful reminder that wealth isn't just about personal gain. It's about all of our responsibility to use what we have to make a difference.
I hear that. And it doesn't have to be about, huge sums of money either.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our values, whether that's supporting causes we care about or advocating for social justice or even just, living our lives in a way that shows our commitment to a better world.
Beautifully said. And as Buffett has shown, it's also about empowering others to do the same.
Yeah.
Just like his kids are carrying on his legacy of giving.
Yeah.
We can all inspire the people around us to live with purpose and, contribute something positive.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We really went way beyond just the financial stuff in Buffett's letter.
For sure.
We got to see his whole philosophy on life, death, and, the responsibility that comes with wealth and privilege.
It's a lot to consider for all of us, no matter what our financial situation is.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Warren Buffett's world.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time.